Welcome to another edition of Cheers to Careers. I'm Steve Ridinghouse, the Career Outreach Coordinator at the School of Journalism and Mass Communications at KU.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Cheers to Careers. I'm Steve Ridinghouse, the Career Outreach Coordinator for the KU School of Journalism and Mass Communications. Today we are joined by Seth Jones, Editor-in-Chief of Golfdom, Landscape Management, and AthleticTurf.net, and also the Editorial Director and Publisher of North Coast Media. Welcome, Seth.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me.
I know you had a long road trip from Eudora.
It was, we jumped in the truck and we hustled it down here and didn't even have to go through the fancy new airport we got. But I'm still close by. It's nice.
Now, with your involvement with Golfdom, Landscape Management, and Athletic Turf, so how frequently do you produce content? Is it all online? Is it a combination of online and print?
So it's Landscape Management and Golfdom are both print publications. Athletic Turf's just a website. So I try not to think about it too much, but in a given month, my team and I, we have about 15 different deadlines between 2 print publications, e-newsletters weekly, and then the various, updating the website and just our social media calendar and things like that. So, but in terms of the big magazines, 2 big deadlines. We try and stagger them, obviously. Okay. Landscape Management goes out to a readership in print of about 65,000 readers. Obviously we have digital only as well, so it gets bigger than that. And then Golfdom is 23,000. So, combined, I tell my team, these publications cover the turfgrass business in some way, but we're, pushing 1 million print magazines out a year.
Now, as Editor-in-Chief, are you pretty much hands-on? I mean, are you generating story ideas? Are you doing the editing, the design, and writing? Kind of a combination of all those?
Yeah, I don't do any design,
okay.
But I try to help. I don't have an eye for that. You can ask Carol Halstead. I walked by her office. I didn't really ever have the eye for design, but I appreciate good design. We've got great designers. My job is, I'm very hands-on in terms of the editorial. Okay. We don't have a big team. We've got, right now we've got 5, including me, 5 editors who work on these 2 books. Okay. And then tomorrow we got a new guy starting, so we'll be at 6. I consider that full staff for us. And that might mean that I can get back to big picture stuff, which what I like to do, long-range planning, in-depth cover stories. Right now, all of us are pretty much just chopping wood. We're just trying to get it done.
Now you talk about your staff. Does this staff work remotely, or do you have like a home base anywhere?
We have a home base. The company's based in Cleveland. They're downtown Cleveland in the IMG building. I'm the only telecommuter. When they hired me 12 years ago, they made that phone call and they said they wanted me to be the editor-in-chief of Golfdom. And here's the circumstances, here's the deal, and you don't have to move to Cleveland. So 12 years ago, I became a work-from-home guy. Before it was cool. So I have 5 editors. I've got an editor, a managing editor, and 2 digital editors who are in Cleveland full-time, working downtown Cleveland.
And I know when I think of golf, I obviously think of the Masters, and that's coming up here in less than 2 weeks, I believe. Sounds like you're not making that trip, but you have made that trip to the Masters before.
Yep, I try to go. For a while, it's a commitment to get there, but it's a fun. It's obviously a golf mecca, and there isn't nothing else like it, in professional golf. And so I don't get a press credential, but I'm a member of the Golf Writers Association, and with that membership, we have a meeting there, and they're nice enough to let us use their media room. So that's kind of a fun pilgrimage to say, hey, I'm coming down for the golf. We also host our annual the Golf Writers Dinner happens there. So a lot of times I'll go down for that. That gets me a Wednesday pass. So sometimes I'll just go see what I can do for a Tuesday grounds pass, and then go Tuesday, Wednesday, and then come back home. And so I've only been to the actual tournament maybe once or twice. I've had a media credential once when I was young. I should have taken better advantage of it. I didn't realize how rare that was at the time. I'll tell you, the first time I ever went to the Masters, this was tough. It was I got invited by one of our advertisers. It was the same year that Kansas was in the Final Four, playing first at the time they're playing Marquette, and they're going to play Syracuse.
2013.
So this is the first time I've ever been invited. And as a matter of fact, at the time I'm with a different publication, and none of those folks had ever been to the Masters either. So we talked about it, and we said, you probably should go if you got invited. That's a pretty nice invitation. So I went, and then so first I went to New Orleans for the Final Four. Watched KU just destroy Marquette.
Right.
And then I told the group I was with, I said, I'm sorry, I got to leave. And they're like, what are you going to the national championships on Monday? I said, I got invited to the Masters. I don't know if I'll ever get invited again. So I jumped on a plane, left. So I still blame myself, Steve, a little bit for that loss. I feel like if I would have been there in the stands, I could have helped the Jayhawks that day. And I didn't know I was going to get invited, more and be able to go as often as I have. So it's a fun work perk, that's for sure.
Now, when you graduated from KU, I know you have a strong writing, editing background. Was golf? Were you even thinking about a career writing about golf?
No, I did. I'm interested in sports. I came to KU interested in sports, pop culture, music. I was hoping to find something in one of those veins in terms of a journalism job. And I had never even played golf, really. I do remember coming to KU as a freshman, and Tim Bankston said on day one, he said, if some of you guys are going to drop this class after today, if you take one thing away from me, it's learn how to play golf. It is the sport of business people. And I was like, that sounds, I already liked golf. I like watching golf. I could never get my dad to take me out to play because it frustrated him. And so then when a golf internship came around, Sharon Bass walked into the Daily Kansas newsroom and she said, I have a internship I want you to apply for. It's with the golf magazine. You're a sports guy into golf. I said, yeah, I like golf. It never came up in the interview how much I played or if I was good. It was mostly like, and it isn't exactly about, my industry isn't about playing the game. It's about how these guys take care of it. But yeah, there's been some uncomfortable situations where, I'll put it this way, I can rise to the occasion. I'm still a mediocre golfer. Some would say bad golfer, but there's been situations where, say, like I can remember Aaron Hills was going to host the U.S. Open, and I was invited to play with the architect, the head pro, and the superintendent, or one of the guys related to the superintendent. And of course, you're going to say yes to that. It's like a couple weeks before the U.S. Open, and I'm thinking, I could practice all day, every day for the next 3 weeks. I'm not going to be ready for it. But I actually went out and played okay. I played my slice. I remember as we walked off the course, the pro, who was a good old boy, and got a little bit frustrated with me because of the way I play and how I was kind of, just ham and egging it around the course, getting around the course. And after we walk off, it was a backhanded compliment. He looks at me and he goes, I've never seen a high handicapper who can putt as good as you. And then he's like, we should work together. I can figure this out for you. And I'm like, yeah, it's back to work on Monday. I just don't have the time to really devote myself to, and it doesn't come naturally to me at all.
So when Dr. Bankston talked about the sport for business people, did you stick with the class?
I did. I did stick with the class. Yeah, yep. And it wasn't, and I didn't, at the time I was just taking any journalism class I could get a hold of because I didn't know what I wanted to do then.
It seems, correct me if I'm wrong, but the last 20 years in journalism, I mean, the writers that really do well have kind of find like their specialized style of writing, that niche. I mean, have you seen it that way too, where, you kind of take ownership of a certain topic and then you just crank out that content?
Yeah, I think for some people who, if you want to be successful and last, I think you got to do that. And I remember that being a topic in our classes, and they said, someone said, hey, if you have an expertise outside of your writing, if you love this, pursue that. And for me, that's why I was looking for sports. My other one was comic books. I'm a big comic book nerd. And so my first internship, one of the internships I got through KU was with Wizard magazine, which at the time was, as a comic book nerd, before all these movies were coming out, that was like my Rolling Stone at the time. Yeah. So I was thrilled with that, pursued that for a little bit, found my way into this golf industry by accident, because what happens, the Golf Course Superintendents Association is located here in Lawrence. I thought that internship was in Florida, by the way. When Sharon told me about it, I was like, where am I going? She says it's in West Lawrence. I was like, I've never been to West Lawrence. When you're a student, you go to campus and you go to Mass Street, right?
Yep.
And so I drove out to the GCSA, met those folks, and that magazine, so this association of, I think there's like 15,000 members. It's for all the golf course superintendents around the country and some international. And so, okay, it's golf. It's not exactly golf, but I can get on the golf course and I can meet some of these guys. And so then I just kind of stuck with it and learned. And that was like my second. I interned with them, took classes with them, all that stuff. Because I was able to kind of focus on that. And so now, let's just put it this way: my yard looks pretty good right now. I've learned enough from these guys to be dangerous.
And you're at golf course superintendents for what, about 11 years?
I think 12 years with them, and now I'm going on 13 years with Golfdom.
And I know I first met you, I think you're probably still a college student. You did some work for like Lawrence.com, Lawrence Journal World, the mag. One thing I remember, you used to, I think during college football season, whoever KU was playing, you'd play like a video game, then you would write about it. How did you make that work? And you made it work really well.
Thanks, that was fun. I'm glad someone read that. That was back too when, well, like I said, I love sports, and I think that was for the mag, and I think I was working with John Nickham back then, who's just an awesome editor, and we were coming up with ideas like, how can we, at the time, the John Madden football game was huge, whatever it was, I guess it would have been the college sports version of it, but we would find two people, somebody to represent KU, somebody to represent the road team, and we would go to, there was a wing shop down was it Vermont Street?
Could be.
And so we would play it. They would host us, and we would plug into their TV, and I would watch, and we would just have a good time and play this game. And I would make and so the guys would really get into it because they knew it was going to be in the newspaper, and they wanted to win. So it just kind of became. I should go back and find one of those clips one day to see if it still works or not, because that was. And really, honestly, at the time, I was just. I love writing. I like to write things that entertain me, and I was like, this is funny enough to where if they're going to pay me and publish it, that's a win-win for me. So that was a fun gig.
So was writing? Did you grow up loving to write, or did that come later in life?
I did love to write. I didn't know it at the time. I just knew because I think it came from the comic book background. The comic books I would read. What I always loved about it was that Stan Lee would always like talk to the reader. And then that got me into magazines where like the letters page where you felt like you were part of the community. And so then from there, I started to do my own writing. And I remember one of the first things, I had a high school teacher, Mrs. Carson, helped me. She was an English teacher, and she wanted to make like a kind of like a inexpensive yearbook for the class, but we're going to print it. And so she's like, hey, do you want to do this? Because you're already writing stuff and this. And then I just went for it, and I just made this random. All of a sudden, I was asking people to contribute articles, and I was writing essays in it and things like that. Published that, and got that taste for what it looked like to see your name in print. And then through comic books too. This is weird. I would write letters to comic books saying, "Hey, why did Spider-Man do this? This is out of character, or what? Whatever. I don't want to geek out too much, but I would do that. And if they published my letter, that was a thrill. And then I would, and then from there, back then they would put your address in there too.
Oh, nice.
So I get a letter from a guy who says, "Hey, if you like comic books, you should join our club. We write. We're amateur comic book writers and things like that." So I was like 16 years old, and I started writing for this thing, but with a bunch of old men from around the nation, where I was just submitting like essays and opinions on movies, on music, and things like that. And so then I really didn't realize it, but I just kind of got into seeing my name and enjoying the thought that somebody was reading what I was writing, because I was interested in it, and if someone else might be interested in what's, maybe I can get a readership, and maybe we can learn some things. Maybe I can meet some interesting people and tell some stories.
So did you ever have to create your own comic book character? Have you done anything?
I have written. I finally committed to it because actually when I came to KU, I was thinking about getting into animation.
Okay.
That was the first thing I wanted to do, and then that just kind of that program went away, and so at one point when I was at KU, I also created I was an editorial cartoonist for a while.
Oh, nice.
And I did pitch them on a comic strip. I really enjoyed comic strips, and they didn't buy it. They should have. It was. I look back at the time and effort. I put more effort in that comic strip over a weekend than I did studying on any of my classes. I was really into that, and so at one point I did when I was 8-9 years into my working career, and I wasn't really taking any fun vacations. We were just kind of hanging out. I took a couple days off, and I just committed to writing and drawing my own 22-page comic, and I did do it.
Nice.
I never have nothing. I am the only. I think I sold 2 copies of them. Both copies I sold it to my friends at Rick's place, and so it was fun. But I could at least say I did it. So that was something. That was just something like a creative goal I wanted to do. Maybe one day I'll dig that back out again.
So what point in your life did you realize you can make a living being a writer? Did the light kind of go off thinking, wow, this is it, this is what I'm going to do?
Yeah, I think, the light that really went off for me was because I think I was still nervous about the idea of even being a journalist until I started getting more advanced into the program. And I had some professors tell me that they liked what I did. Mm-hmm. Because I think that I enjoyed it, but I didn't think I was any good. And then there was a class, I think it was John Hudnall. He sent everybody out of this building. He said you had to have so many clips in a semester. And it's a maybe on Monday, Wednesday, Friday class, but he said, hey, everybody leave right now. You have this classroom time to go find a story, write it, submit it to me, and the best story I'm going to count it as a clip for you. So everybody just scattered out of the building, and most everybody went this way. Everybody goes north out of Stouffer Flint. Well, I decided to go south. I don't know, just safety, safety in numbers. There's less people going this way. So I walked down the hill and I ran into one of the parking ticket guys.
Nice.
And so I'm like, hey, can I talk to you? I'm doing this class project for it. He's like, yeah. And so I started talking to him and came back. I wrote a story about this guy and what it's like having his job and how many times he's been cussed out and why he likes the job and it turned out, I was like, this is pretty good. I'm going to submit this. And so then the next class, I decided not to go. I skipped class. And I think I was sitting down at the Crossing, whatever the bar was. And classes, it was just like a beautiful Thursday afternoon, and I'm sitting there with my friends, and somebody walks up, and they're like, "Oh, Hudnall's gonna be mad at you." And I said, "Why? What up?" And he goes, well, you didn't come to class today and you won the competition. You got the free clip. But he wasn't going to give it to you because he didn't show up. And I was like, oh, I probably should have came to class today. But it was like a moment like that where I was like, wait, there's 20 of us in this. What did you write about? He's like, oh man, I struggled. I went over here and I submitted this thing about fall colors. Or something. You just didn't get a good piece. And so it was a moment like that where I was like, okay, if I really respect the people I'm in this room with, I think there's a lot of smart kids in here, and if I was able to get something to where the professor was going to spotlight me, then maybe I got a chance at this. Make money at it? I don't know, but maybe I can at least try it.
And how many semesters do you remember, like with the Daily Kansan? You wrote for the Daily Kansan, right?
Yeah.
Did you have various roles with them?
Yeah, I did. It was that was a roller coaster. I started off as I had the Natural History Museum was my first beat, and then from there I did Student Senate, which was like there was an election and there's people were hating each other, and that was chaos. And then I survived all that, and then they asked me what I wanted to do, and I told them I wanted to be a sports columnist. And they said, yeah, okay. And I said, and I want to do an editorial cartoon. And they're like, okay. Because I think after I paid my dues, they're like, okay, you're working hard enough. You survived the Student Senate battles. We'll get you, we'll get you that sports column. And so then I did sports columns for the rest of my. I never. Every Wednesday I had my sports column, and that was so much fun. That was very life changing in the sense that my face was in the paper every Wednesday, and then people started recognizing me and talking to me and around, just like shouting out and stuff like that. And I'm like, this is really cool. I remember going into a classroom, and it was always a thrill. I think I had like a stats class that was tough on Wednesdays, but I would walk in and it was one of those big theaters, and everybody would be reading the paper, and I could see my like you could see like I could look up in the room, I could see like they weren't reading necessarily, not all of them were reading the front of the sports page, but I could if they were inside the sports page, I could see, and I was like, that's mass media. I want to do more of this.
And I know your daughter, Evie's here on campus today. Do we have a future Jayhawk, or what do you think?
I think she's taken an interest into, she's seen a lot of it. She sees what I do. And I think that one thing that she knows about my job is that I've had some pretty cool opportunities. And some of the times, some of the trips, it's funny because I'm like, hey, I got to go, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to be gone for 4 days for XYZ. And, I'm going to have to be, I'll be at the PGA Championship, and then I'm going to go over to visit this guy, and then we're going to, and then my wife will say, okay, so just let us know when you're going to get back from vacation. And I'll say, no, it's not vacation. This is a work trip. I'm going to be working. But she has seen some of the things, some of the moments. And so I think she also sees the days where I'm coming out of my office and I'm like doing, like rubbing my eyes thinking like, whoa, how much copy did I just read? And is this magazine as perfect as I want it to be, or did I just let it go? So there's good and bad, but I think she also has a knack for it too. So she's got a good voice. She's a good student.
And with writing, I know kind of people that haven't done writing for a career, they always think writer's block. Do you still go through those phases, or you got a system down where, nope, I can do it?
No, there's no such. I don't believe in it. There's no such thing as writer's block. I think if here's a trick that I'll say that I use. If I have a hard time starting a story, let's say it's just a story where I have multiple sources. What I'll do is I'll take my best source and I'll just start writing his or her part, and so like, okay, I'll come back to the beginning later, and then I'll start writing the story. And then as I'm writing the story, something will occur to me. I'll see someone said something. I'm like, okay, there's my lead. If it's a column, I love that moment when. So literally, we took the new issue of LM to press as I left. As I like ran out of the house to get down here because we were supposed to go press probably yesterday afternoon, but we went to press about noon today. Okay. And I've started a draft of my column last night around 8:30 just to get a couple ideas on paper. And then today, after I had to write two short pages, a lot of captions and things, and then I committed to writing the column. I think it turned out okay, but I write like I speak. And so I just tried to talk to the reader a little bit for 640 words, boom. I've never really had sometimes, and the other thing that's interesting is sometimes I don't like the column. I'm like, yeah, this wasn't quite what I wanted. And I'll get nice feedback from my readers, and then sometimes I think this was a good one this month. I'm glad this one, and I don't hear it's just crickets. Don't hear anything. So
no, that's frustrating. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just a thing. But yeah, it's just a matter, especially with as much content we got. But publishing is a tough gig right now too. Print and paper. So.
Do you still have? I know, I'm old school. I love the feeling of a magazine in my hand. Do you still get that way? I mean, you still get excited about seeing your work in?
Yeah, my only problem. I do love feeling them, and I love like the feel and the. But there are times when I know if it's like a struggle with an issue. There are times where I'll see a magazine and I kind of don't want to look at it. I kind of want to just move on, and that's not a good feeling. It's just that's only if I had like a really struggle getting the cover Like if there was like we didn't get the image we wanted, or if I didn't feel real strong about the cover story, there's probably a couple of packages in my house of magazines that have never been unsealed, just because I'm just like, yeah, that one still feels, that one we bled a little bit too much on that one.
I know we're approaching kind of graduation season. We're about 6 weeks away from the time our students walk down the hill. Do you have any advice that you would share, like for those students who are pursuing like writing, editing as a career?
Yeah, I'd probably just say that one, while you're here, meet a lot of people and just talk to a bunch of people. Like a lot of the job is just being able to talk to people, meeting strangers. I waited tables all through college. I worked at Willie C's. Rest in peace, Willie C's. That was a good spot. I tried to open the door when it was. I had a shift that morning when it was locked up. But just being able to talk to people, and I think just being open-minded about what the opportunities are here. I remember one thing someone said to us said to a class like, "Hey, you think you're going to go write for Cosmopolitan or Mademoiselle? It's probably not going to happen. But you might write for something like this."
Yeah.
So just be open-minded, because the other thing I think about my job is I made myself a little sign that says, "Golfdom is as cool as you want it to be." And what I mean by that is just that if I want to have a cool interview with someone, I just got to go pursue it. If I want to have a really neat cutting-edge cover story, I got to write it, or I could just try to make deadlines. So you can find cool things out there if you keep an open mind and just really search for opportunities. Well, and then let me throw one more thing out too. When I was at, I got to say that Sharon Bass was the first person who really showed me that anything's possible with this school. I came to her and I said to her, she said, "What do you want to do?" And that was when I talked to her about that comic book idea about Wizard Magazine. And she says, "Okay." And she came back to me like a day or two later and she says, "I got you a 2-week internship at Wizard Magazine." And I was blown away. I couldn't believe. So I went up there in December for a 2-week in. Been reading this magazine for, since I was a kid. And now I'm in their office working for them, And that was a moment where I realized that if you do good work and if you get people to pay attention to you, there's opportunities that are going to come from being a part of this school and a part of this program.
Yeah, well said. I had Sharon Bass for a magazine class, I think my senior year. That was an awesome class. Seth, hey, I appreciate you taking the time to join us in the studio. It's been fascinating to watch your career for the last, 20 plus years. And hey, cheers to your careers.
Cheers. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate you.
Thanks.